Hello and welcome to the GMBN Tech Show. Now, coming up on the show this week, we have some big news about the channel.
We check out some pretty cool stuff from D3O, Fox and Canyon.
As well as RockShox debuting the new SID, which seems to have really bulked out.
And we check out some stuff from the cool Scandinavian maestros, Sweet Protection. Okay, before we jump into the news, the most exciting news this week is we've hit 200,000 subscribers. And that is all entirely down to you guys. So thank you so much for following what we do. Everyone from the occasional viewer to the hardcore subscribers that watch everything. We know who you all are. We look at your comments all the time and we love it.
Yeah, and we just want to say thank you. And we want to show how much we appreciate the support by throwing it out there. You know, a lot of the content we make, we try and make reactive to what you want. It might not always be the stuff that you comment that gets made, but a lot of the stuff that gets made is from comments.
100%, yeah, exactly what Henry says. We farm through those comments to find out what's going to work and see what makes you tick, really.
Exactly. So get in the comments, what do you want to see? We are actually very excited. We've been talking about it for it feels like a while now, but the new set is coming.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the dirt shed at the moment and they've spent a bit of money on this place. It's quite nice. So I'm hoping our set's going to be as good. We've also got a new maintenance set being built. So hit us up with those ideas. What do you want us to make? What do you want us to fix? What how-tos do you need to see? Anything, come on, hit us up. As long as it's to do with bikes and tech, we're in.
We'll do our best. Yes, 200,000. I cannot quite believe it. I think that's pretty cool. So thank you again. But on with this week's show. Now, as you might have guessed, this week we are doing things slightly differently. Obviously, here in the UK, we are massively affected by the coronavirus and we're trying to take the necessary precautions. So I'm filming here and Doddy is filming in his bike cave at his home, but I hope you still really enjoy with the show. First of all, I'm gonna throw to Doddy, who's got a release video from D3O, but maybe there is more than meets the eye with this one.
Okay, so you may have heard that unfortunately Tiny Seagrave is actually injured at the moment, but just before she injured herself, or it was announced that she was injured on the social channels, this really cool video went out from D3O. Now D3O is a protection company, we're going to get to that in a minute, but take a closer look and you'll see that Tiny is actually riding that new Canyon Sender, the one that's not being talked about. The one that they can't confirm has 29-inch wheels, but certainly appears to have bigger wheels. And look a little closer, in fact it might require you to pause it or slow motion it, and you'll see that the shock mount is no longer suspended from the sort of top tube, seat tube area. It's actually from the down tube, so it's quite a different looking bike and we're really excited to see more about it. Now obviously Tiny is out of action for the moment, although on the grand scheme of things with where racing is right now, it's kind of no bad thing. You know, really unlucky for you Tiny, but thankfully at the same time the racing is not going ahead. Not that we should be thankful because of the situation we're in, but you get the picture. Anyhow, D3O, let's talk about this stuff. So this, a few years back, this was the wonder stuff, and I think it actually goes under most people's radar now because it does such a good job and so many different brands use this stuff. Now D3O, I'd guess you'd call it some sort of viscous, it's like a thick gel type protection, and when you hit it, it firms up. Basically the molecules align and it becomes a solid sort of structure, I guess you could call it. Now you can achieve a similar thing from using a hard cap pad. But of course the downside of using hard cap pads in place of like a knee pad or an elbow pad, for example, is the fact that they're not very comfortable to ride in. So enter D3O here. So this stuff is amazing. It sort of folds around your joint and enables it to move. It's really quite intelligent stuff. And you hit the stuff, literally you can hit the stuff with a hammer and it firms right up. Not that we suggest you should hit yourself with a hammer if you're wearing that stuff, that would just be plain stupid. But nonetheless, it's really cool tech and we're going to be finding a bit more out about protection like this soon, so keep tuned on the channel.
Yeah, that new Canyon Sender, potentially, well, it looks super cool, doesn't it? I love downhill bikes. I've got one on order myself currently because I want to do some more downhill content on the channel. So what do you guys think? Do you want to see more downhill content? We need to do more cross-country stuff. That's in the works too. But on the other end of the spectrum, well, big bikes are fun, aren't they? We've seen the launch from Sweet Protection of the new Trailblazer helmet, which, well, it looks super cool, really nice, available in small, medium, medium large, large XL, comes with MIPS, loads of ventilation and lots of color choice. Also accompanying this release was the new Ronin and Ronin Max sunglasses. Now these are available in 6 different lens options. They come with that kind of retro yet modern styling you might have seen on some 100% glasses. I think it's in that sort of guise, and I think they look really, really cool. Nice and big, but with ventilation ports, loads of different colors. They certainly look pretty cool, and teamed with a helmet, I imagine it would make one sweet looking package. Also this week we've seen a new release from RockShox with a beefed up SID. Beefed up, down countryed up, who's to say? Here's Doddy with the details.
Okay, so let's talk about that new SID. So what do we know about the old SID for starters? The SID is the classic, the iconic, you could say, RockShox suspension fork for cross country. In fact, here is a shot on screen of a classic looking SID. That spindly little thing, that's right. Super lightweight, very effective cross country, won God knows how many races over the years. One of the most winningest forks in existence, you probably could say. But enter the new version. Oh, now we're talking. So there's effectively two models here. There's like the super light models, which are available with 100mm travel. This is those on screen right now. Now, these super light ones got 100mm travel, 32mm stanchions. Of course, they're available in different colours, but the SID blue, well, that's really where it's at, isn't it? It's the SID after all. The super light version weighs 1,326 grams in a 29-inch version. That's pretty flipping light. Now also the lowers on them kind of remind me a little bit of the stepcast lowers from Fox forks. That's flattery, that's a great thing. They look really, really cool. They're shaving off any weight that's absolutely not needed without hindering the performance of the fork. And speaking of which, it's stiffer and stronger than it's ever been as well. So there's nothing to worry about there. Now it's got new dampers in there. It's got an RL damper, and of course it's got a new version of that charger damper called the Race Day. The Race Day is ultra light in its build, and it's got a full lockout. That means completely rigid, essential for those guys and girls when they're absolutely smashing it for the finishing line, when they want to be sprinting. So that is what that is aimed at. Of course, there's loads of shots of them on screen right now for you to see. But this is what I really want to talk about, and this is the other model, the beefier, bigger brother. So this is a 120 model that uses 35mm stanchions. You can see where this is going at you. So cross country is getting badass, and well, what can you say? This is the fork to do it on. It has to be right now. 120mm travel. It's got all the same features. You can have the RL damper. You can have the Race Day damper inside, and in 120mm travel with the 35mm stanchions, right? The weight of this is 1,537 grams. It's not much heavier, and that is insanely light. And it's also got a really cool integrated fender. Check this out. That thing is so nice looking. I tell you what, I'd love to get a hold of a set of those. I think that looks like a mega fork. Okay, so both forks have that debonair spring. It's enhanced for XC riding now. It's got maximum plush fluid, so basically the best optimized fluids you can have on the inside of those forks. SKF ultra low friction seals on them to make sure that the sort of breakaway sensitivity on them is insane. And they've got a twist lockout system. Now I saw this a few years ago and I thought it looked incredible, and actually you might think that twisting something to actuate it doesn't work, but it really does. It feels really, really cool. Now there's also another thing as well to accompany that. This is a SID Lux or SID Deluxe shock. This is it on screen, available in a couple of different options, but it's the XC focused lightweight shock, basically to pair up perfectly with the ride qualities and attributes of those forks. I'll tell you what, this is kind of a cool thing for things to come, because I don't think anymore that you can class the SID as just an XC fork. Well, maybe you can just class it as an XC fork, but XC has changed, or you can class it as a lightweight trail fork. It's kind of happening what happened with trail and enduro. You're getting XC and trail kind of creeping together. I've always loved short travel. I've always said if short travel got stiff and strong, like that was where I'd want to be. And that fork, man, that looks awesome.
And now it is time for Bike Cave. Now I'm sure there's a lot of you, like many of us at the channel, who are either in self-isolation or just being extra cautious and spending a lot more time at home. So if that time is in the Bike Cave, why not get some pictures in? Get them into the uploader with the link below, and hopefully we can feature it on the show. Now over on GMBN this weekend, we had a really cool documentary about the medical team at the Andes Pacifico. I'm going to leave a link in the description because it was such a cool experience hanging out with them. I really, really liked how the video came out, and maybe you'll like it too. And it ties in nicely with Brian from the Philippines. He says, hello everyone, he just put up a simple workstation in his garage for his bikes. He's also an orthopedic surgeon by profession, and he races downhill and enduro. And it's super cool, you know. Doctors like to shred too, it has to be said. The bike cave itself looks super smart. We've got all the essentials there really. We've got some spare rims hanging up, skateboard, helmets galore, and what you would expect from an orthopedic surgeon. It's all very neat and tidy. Going through it, his bikes, pretty banging. That Santa Cruz looks absolutely decked. Oh, I love downhill bikes, eh? Don't know what, I love trail bikes, I love riding my enduro bikes, but there's something about downhill bikes, man. I just love them. We got, ooh, looks really, really tidy. Some custom decals, looks really cool. E13 wheels, red box on the front, and yeah, there is a picture of Brian, well, in action in both senses of the word, on his bike and in the operating room. So good on you, Brian. Thank you very much for sending that in, and big up to the Philippines. You always seem to send us really interesting stuff, and it is only a matter of time before we manage to come out and visit you. It would be an absolute dream, so fingers crossed, we'll be there one day. And now it is time for Top Mods, which is my favourite section of the show. Now, if you've got your own top mod, get it in the link in the description below. It doesn't have to be something you've done to your bikes, it could be a cool procedure that maybe other people haven't thought of. This week we are over to Finn at Full Factory Suspension. Now, Finn is a real friend of the channel and often helps us out. He's got some suspension tips with no special tools needed that he's going to walk us through today.
Hi, Finn here from Full Factory Suspension. Couple of tips for you guys while you're off work, looking at your bike forlornly because you can't go out riding with your mates, but you might want to check it out and make sure it's all tip top. If you're going to be adjusting your pressures on your shock, before you hook up your shock pump, just give the valve a little blast, like that. That'll just blow out any dirt, crud that might have accumulated in the top of the valve, and that'll allow it to clear out, and then you can hook your shock pump on. Because if you just go whacking your shock pump on there, you're going to pump all that dirt inside your fork chamber, and then that'll possibly damage your fork later on in the line. Yeah, top tip for you there, mate. Another tip for you guys on your suspension forks, you might want to pay particular attention to the seals around the front of the fork, just here. Any dirt accumulating around the seals and the wipers going to make it its way inside the fork, particularly if it's dry. If it's been wet, raining, and it's dried up on the fork stanchions. So give your bike a little bit of love. Nice clean rag. Just wipe all the dirt away from the stanchions. Get in behind there. Carefully remove the dirt. Can help to put a little bit of just plain water on the rag, just to soak up any dirt stuff on there. And then you want to lubricate the fork leg with something. Float fluid is ideal for this. This is a shock lubricating fluid, lubricates the O-rings. Just a little squeeze of this around the fork, and then smear it all the way around with your finger, making sure to get around the back there. And then bounce up and down on your fork a couple of times, and that'll lift any dirt from the seal up into this tide mark here, and then you can just wipe that away. Wipe away any residue. You don't want to leave that on there to attract dirt later on down the line, but that little tip will help keep the dirt out of the seals and help the seals to stay lubricated.
Cheers, Finn. And that's not all. We're also going to throw over to the Dodster, who has a cool setup to how to keep your hands sparkly clean in the workshop.
Yeah, there's some pretty solid tips there from Finn, and while we're at it, I've got a pretty cool top tip, bit of a hack you can do at home. Working on your bike, obviously you're going to get dirty hands. You can just use washing up liquid, but it's a bit wasteful doing that, and of course you might want to use rubber nitrile gloves, but you might not have any. So how about making some homemade hand cleaner? All you need is some olive oil. Olive oil smells nice and it's nice on your hands. A bit of honey and some granulated sugar. And basically mix it all up in a jar. As you can see, I've got some right here. And this stuff, it smells amazing. The coarseness of those granulated sugar granules takes out all the stuff on your hands really, really well. But the combination of the honey and the olive oil is really good to your skin. Smells nice. It's pretty cheap to make because you can make a whacking great tub of the stuff. This was an old jam jar or something like that, I think. And I've been using this for about a year now and it's still going. Really good stuff, nice and cheap, and you might have some of that stuff in your cupboard, so definitely worth checking out. Okay, now it's time for Rewind. This is the retro part of the show where I get to talk about old school mountain bike stuff. If you've got anything old school, any retro bikes, perhaps you've seen some cool retro stuff out there, let's see it. There's a link at the bottom of the screen and there's a proper click-through link in the description underneath. But this week I want to talk to you about a company called DMR because they did something very cool in 1995 and really did help shape the way the mountain biking was going in the UK and probably abroad as well, but we really heard about it most on our shores here. Now DMR was started by Damien Mason and Matt Riley, and it stands for Damien and Matt Racing. They were two friends that studied engineering and they got jobs out in Taiwan manufacturing bikes and engineering everything to do with bikes, talking cranks, bottom brackets, frames, forks, even suspension stuff, you name it, they've done it. Whilst out there they were thinking, is this something that we could do ourselves? And when they came back to the UK they started a distributor and they started distributing BMX components like Fishbone. Whilst doing that they were looking at the products and thinking, do you know what, we can do somebody better and we can make a name for ourselves. Mountain biking at the time was going through a bit of a transitional phase because there was new forms of, I don't know, maybe transition is the wrong word to use. Let's just say it was diversifying quite a lot because originally you just had one bike and you did everything on it. But in the sort of mid-90s, you're starting to get full suspension bikes, you're starting to get jump bikes. There's lots of different sort of fragments of the sport. And they hit the nail on the head at the time by redeveloping the flat pedal. And this is the V12. And the V12, the cool thing about this is they took a design that already existed out there, the Shimano DX, but it was just such a dated design and it had loads of flaws. I mean, it looked really cool, but they weren't very grippy. They didn't have removable pins. This is it on screen, you can see. And it had a 1/2 inch threaded axle on it. 1/2 inch threaded axles, of course, didn't work with mountain biking because we use cranks that have 9/16 axles on them. Now, the reason BMX used 1/2 inch was because of old school one-piece cranks basically, but we don't need to talk about that. They identified the fact that it was a really good design but just really dated, so they took it to their designers. So what they decided to do was refresh it and make it much better. So they took the basic design, they made it more concave so your foot really sits into the pedal, much like it would on a skateboard for a really good feel. They gave it these whacking great pins that are removable and replaceable, and they put a sealed axle in there as well. They later made the V8, which was a cheaper version that had a cheaper axle and cheaper bearings in it, not cartridge, but it still had that same formula of the really good body on it. Now this pedal went everywhere in the 90s. On screen there's some really cool adverts from DMR and it shows you how ahead of the times they were, because the sort of thing that was happening in BMX, they had road falls, they had loads of cool videos documenting the lifestyle. Mountain biking didn't have any of that. And when Sprung kicked off, that was by Alex Rankin, who later went on to make the Earth series of videos. They were doing video adverts in the Sprung videos, and if you look through, in fact we might put a link to a Sprung video if we can in the description underneath this. If you look at some of those, you'll see some of those early adverts from DMR. They're really, really quite cool, and it just shows you how in tune Damien and Matt were with the sort of the audience that would be buying their products, because they just identified with them straight away, and as a result basically everyone became really loyal. And one of the most loyal people actually from those days was Brendan Fairclough, who still rides for them now. In fact, he's got a signature pedal, he's got the matte black version of the Volt, and he's also got the Death Grip, which is his handlebar grip. Along the way they've done a whole bunch of other cool stuff. They did one of the most influential frames. They had the Trail Star, which was a chromoly dirt jump frame. Although when it came out everyone was like, whoa, why are you making a dirt jump frame? That's quite radical for you guys. But actually their first frame they made was when they were back in Taiwan, and this is it on screen. It's a 20-inch BMX called the Trigger, which had almost identical graphics, in fact, to the later, much later Trail Star that came on the scene, I think about 96. A friend of mine had one, I later bought it off him, and I sprayed it army green. Super cool. I don't know whatever happened to that bike, but But DMR, really cool brand. I love the fact they influenced so many people for so many years and made the flat pedal thing really quite cool. One little brand punching a massive hole.
And that is it for another week's GMBN Tech Show. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget guys, to be safe out there, stay safe, don't take any unnecessary risks on your mountain bike or ride in big groups.
Yeah, exactly what you say, Henry. Yeah, stay safe out there, people. Keep up with those track stand challenges. Think of all the cool stuff you can do at home. If you've got any tech ideas that we can make from home, I can make in my workshop, Henry can make as well, let us know in those comments underneath. And as always, cheers for hanging around.
Thanks guys, we'll see you next time.